recently there was a conversation on my Discord server between some individuals talking about how they were frustrated with keeping up with the ins and outs of new releases within Magic the Gathering. Grizzled veterans of the game, snarling and chomping like wild badgers, barking at the latest releases in an attempt to ward them off. But much like my pet dog's getting angry at a plumber coming in, that plumber's still gonna fix your pipes and still take a shit in your toilet. Your yapping pups protests are largely irrelevant. Magic product makes money, and money makes the Magic executives lather themselves up in baby oil and pose like gargoyles atop the bedposts of some depraved inner-city bordello in deepest, darkest Europe. Look, it's a fair observation to make, it's a fair criticism. There is a lot of Magic product all the time. Perpetual hype and all that. But beyond all of that, dear viewer, the conversation had a plot twist, an emotional shift in tone. They were not talking about the latest competitive innovations or powerful new power creep staples come to rotate your supposedly non-rotating formats. They were, of course, predominantly talking about Commander. Everything is Commander. This video is not aimed at mocking the individuals in that conversation because, like I said, their criticisms are valid. There is a stress that comes with this from the not only the game itself and the company making the game, but the culture around it, the community echo chamber, if you will, the content that people like I make. But ultimately, this feeling can be fixed by adjusting your own attitudes to the game. Commander is Magic the Gathering wearing a silly hat and with a mustache, and it's stealing your stars in a minigame where you wiggle the control stick as fast as possible to spank some cartoon walrus or something. I'm referring to Mario Party there, if it wasn't clear. That wasn't about some sort of walrus spanking fetish. And yes, CDH does exist, which is a tournament format, and in that scenario, you are either encouraged or mandated to keep up with the latest competitive innovations because it's a tournament competitive format. But the rest of Commander is just mustaches and silly party hats. The stakes have never been lower. Nothing matters. So in today's video, I want to talk about the concept of keeping up, or at least slowing down, of not upgrading your deck as a counterpoint to this, to not do this thing where we clamber for the latest hot shit, that we aren't buying 3 copies of Trouble in Pairs or whatever. The stakes have never been lower, and there are no prizes unless you're playing CDH. If you're not playing CDH and there's prizes, you're fucking doing it wrong. I'm going to tell you to stop upgrading your decks, and some of you are going to say no, that I'm not your father, that you don't want to listen to me. But hear me out, here's a counterpoint. What if I was your father? I was going to make a joke here about fucking your mum, but I thought that wasn't appropriate, so I cut it from the script. But I still wanted to do the weird bit where I said I might be your dad. Tell me in the comment section below if you want me to be your dad. But wait, there's something else I need to tell you about. This video's sponsor. Me, you fucks. I'm a YouTuber, I sometimes stream, I'll be streaming more in the new year. But ultimately, I'm a self-employed person who writes and creates and largely edits his own stuff. This video will be edited by an editor. And you can help support the channel and help me pay for editors and my mortgage and to keep the lights on by signing up to patreon.com. Now look, you've heard me talking about it before, but what Patreon does is it allows you to support me far more, hundreds, thousands of times more than what any monetized ad revenue view from YouTube would give me, because ad revenue sucks. It helps you get involved with the Discord server where I get ideas and thoughts for videos like this one. I sometimes even jovially berate my viewers and fans on there, like you, Belial. Fuck you, Belial. Am I saying fuck you because of that game where you killed my commander and then did nothing and then won off Dragon's Approach? Or am I saying fuck you for the bad place you booked for our meet-up Patreon dinner at Command Fest London? And the funny thing is, I picked the place. You just did the right thing by getting hold of them and calling up and trying to book it. And then we got there, they were having a fucking wedding and wouldn't let us in. So we all had to go have kebabs and Chipotle in our own hotel rooms. It wasn't ideal. Okay, it's about the Dragon's Approach. The Dragon's Approach. Anyway, I'm getting into like a deep memory here. If you want me to tell you to fuck you as well, we can talk about ripping cocks off and coming, then come join my Patreon and join my Discord for just £2 a month. That's the end of the ad read. That was a fucking good ad read if you ask me. We have more information than ever thanks to things like EDH Rec that allows us to obsess over the percentage of decks playing our favourite pet card from Universes Beyond, the Gilmore Girls. Whilst a number of gameplay shows based out of LA featuring an actor from a show that you started watching on Netflix but never finished is exponentially increasing. Since the beginning of this video, 4 different LA-based gameplay shows have started. Soon, the earth will be crushed under the weight of 4 charismatic individuals playing Commander in a little studio space. And then there's deck techs, and there's upgrades, buying guides, and purchase this card before it becomes $10 now. I'm being playful about all this content, and it might sound like I'm mocking it all, but I'm not, right? I've done gameplay on my show, I've done deck upgrade guides, I've done talk about commander decks that I like, and new cards you should play, and new hotnesses and old hotnesses and all that stuff. The creator ecosystem is there for you to engage with as much as you want or as little as you want. The problem is that all of it compounds a overload of information, and this happens in like every facet of our lives now with social media and content. Sometimes I love it. I go through these little honeymoon periods where I'm super into it. Right now I'm watching Pioneer content because I want to play Pioneer, and it gets your creative juices going, but sometimes the perpetual hype from the product output of the company before you've got to play with your little buddy rabbits from Bloomburrow, we're already talking about cheerleaders in Duskmorn. And yes, I'm not over the fact there's a fucking cheerleader in Duskmorn. I really like Duskmorn. I think the cheerleader's stupid. So there are two philosophical concepts that I want to put forward to help you get out from under the weight of this constant information overload. They are two barrels of the same ontological shotgun in theory. The shotgun that I'm placing into my metaphysical mouth. When I pull the trigger, it's not death, it's actually profound metaphors, philosophy. What the fuck am I talking about? The first of these is placing a deck into Amber. I'll explain that more in a second. And the second of these two concepts is the wider idea of avoiding playing with all the new best hot shit. That second one sounds very vague. I will talk a bit more about it, but let's talk about the Amberification. I hate that term. Let's talk about putting decks into Amber. Imagine one of your favorite decks that you've had plenty of good games with, you've had fun stories with, and you don't really want to take apart. But let's be honest, you probably have, what, 4, 5, 10, 12 commander decks. Everyone's got too many commander decks. Each deck's 100 cards. It's absurd to try and maintain all of those. So instead of neglecting some, I'm positing the idea of arbitrarily freezing them. You still play with them, but you make the absolute definitive choice to never upgrade them again, or at least until you decide to. More of that in a second. My example of this is Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, and Street Urchin. This commander and background pair is a deck I love. It does big, silly things, it floods the board, it does some pinging all over the shop, and most of all, it makes some bees. It's the first deck that I played on the Prof show, Shuffle Up and Play, and a lot of people thought it was great and really enjoyed the energy of not only myself, but what the deck provided. And introduced a load of players, a new generation to a card that has been close to my heart and on the channel for the best part of a decade at this point. Things like Hornet's Nest, a card that was kind of fell to the wayside, forgotten in the ever-evolving arms race that is Commander. This deck holds a super soft spot in my heart for all sorts of reasons. Shuffle Up and Play, Hornet's Nest, Baldur's Gate 3 was incredible, I'm a big fan of old Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Jaheira was a constant member of my party, big fan of her arc from Baldur's Gate 1 to Baldur's Gate 2. There's a lot of stuff that just makes this deck a perfect storm of shit that I like. And there are many new cards that are perfect includes for it. Molten Gatekeeper is an example from Modern Horizons 3. It's a recurable impact tremors on a body that would be perfect for the deck's game plan. But alas, I've decided to unload some of the burden and say, you know what? This deck is good. It doesn't need to be changed. And now it exists in the exact same state that it showed up and Shuffle Up and Play as. That's kind of a unique thing to me. It's kind of a memory of playing on that show for the first time. Sure, not everyone has that, but I have several other decks in the cupboard as well that I haven't changed for ages. Rafik and Niv, for example. Those two haven't been set. They're more fell to the wayside, but I will be picking more decks in future just to set in Amber and not touch for years. And this does a few things for you. Firstly, it keeps a home for all those old cards that get outshined and eclipsed by strictly better power creep of contemporary Magic design. World's Gatekeeper is not strictly better than any other card in the deck. It probably performs a better, more efficient role than many cards. But I want to play with those old classics and the cards that I've built memories with and love with for the last 5, 10, 15 years that I've played with them. I don't want to spend time removing these cards I have fondness for to chase the latest shit. It means I don't have to feel any pressure to cut my favorite darlings. And it means I can focus my energy elsewhere too. I'm not saying do this with all your decks. For example, Abdul Adrian, which is a deck that I've also played in Shuffle Up and Play that people know me for and I love, that constantly gets tinkered with and changed a little bit, where I add new different cards to play with. That deck is a deck that I want to play with new things in. I want to try some of the new Fallout cards. I want to try some of the new Warhammer. Pretty old now, but I want to try these cards in it. And what that allows you to do is have a larger suite of decks without this pressure to upgrade and fuck about with just countless cards. You must feel like I do. I've got cards everywhere. Sometimes I'll just go to wipe my ass and Magic cards fall out of every crevice. But I still get joy in having access to Jaheira, having that deck to play with, even though it's not been upgraded now for the best part of 2, maybe 3 years. And that's absolutely fine. If anything, it's to be encouraged. That's the fucking point of this video. Now, the beauty of the put a couple of decks into Amber is that it really isn't permanent. If you think of Jurassic Park and the digging for DNA and the mosquitoes within the Amber, the dinosaurs that they resurrect were upgraded in some ways, arguably. Okay, we didn't know dinosaurs had feathers at the time, but they should have had. But the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park didn't, and some of the retcon argument is that they're improved in some ways. And I fucking agree. This absolutely mangled talking point of Jurassic Park is the fact that I think dinosaurs without feathers are much cooler.
And the jaws of death.
Feathered dinosaurs can go fuck themselves. I have strong opinions on feathered dinosaurs. Let's say you have a deck that you committed to its original form, circa 2014, and it's just feeling sluggish and boring in today's world of Vogers, Smothering Tides, and Fierce Guardianships. Well, just remember, none of this is contractually obligated. You put some decks into this playable state of stasis that I'm describing, but it's not a commitment anyone is making you keep. Least of all me, I don't give a fuck really. This is just a YouTube video. But I do think it's a fun little thought exercise that can bring you some relaxation and a new feeling of fun as you're preserving a certain period in time. But you didn't put a ring on it. You're not committed to this. If you feel like you're not enjoying it, you can finally crack that Amber up and do an upgrade. If anything, going a year or two of periodically playing this older deck that you have a fondness for without any upgrades, and playing with older cards that people will probably telling you to stop playing with, and then eventually doing the upgrade, oh, that's some good shit. I'll probably upgrade your hero if we get another Baldur's Gate set, because that could push me to do it. And to round out and finish off the video, let's talk about this idea, the wider idea of not playing with all the newest stuff. Look, new toys excite me too. And I'm not saying that not playing with new stuff is some virtuous pursuit that is the MTG platonic ideal. What I am saying is that Commander doesn't fucking matter. So buying $40 rares to play in your Commander deck can sometimes be a little pointless. Sometimes waiting for them to die down from the hype is a good thing. So being on the cutting edge is, dare I say it, kind of dumb and pointless. One of the coolest things about Commander is that very fuck-about nature of the format. The multiplayer political aspect of it all allows for some skill expression and creativity that is kind of lacking in other formats. Can you imagine me doing a video where I tell Modern and Legacy and Pioneer players to Amber encase their decks from 2016 and then try and play it into a sea of Lord of the Rings Modern Horizons 3 stuff? It'd be a fucking massacre. People would think I'm insane. But that kind of challenge is absolutely achievable in the world of Commander without a really truly feels bad. I personally constantly play suboptimal decks because I am lazy. I don't want to order new cards. I do, don't get me wrong, I do order swaps of new cards to do a full new deck build. That can happen. But often I will just play with the stuff that's available to me in my deck boxes, recently opened, in my bulk, in my folders. I will dig through and do an upgrade with the stuff I have to hand. I was recently digging through some bulk to find an Animate Dead. I was going to play this in my Captain Nagath deck, the blue-black mill and steal your shit deck, and I couldn't find one for love nor money, and I was like, oh, I'll order one at some point. But I found a little 4 and 5 mana, strictly worse, reanimate things out of other people's graveyard effects that I decided to play in the deck. This one's 6 mana, and at least it has Convoke. It's quite bad, but I'm playing it anyway because it can steal other people's shit.
Swiper, no swiping.
And that deck, I tell people before we start playing it to steal yourself, bit of mill in there, and the deck is super inefficient, suboptimal. It is basically a derpy, purposefully lower powered deck to play at lower powered tables. I'm not actually saying you should play 4, 5, and 6 mana versions of 2 mana spells, because that isn't necessarily the sound of a fun, powerful environment. But what I am saying is dig through those old boxes, go through your folders, and utilize the stuff that you have from years gone by, instead of just constantly trying to buy the latest stuff. I'm not even saying don't buy things. If you want to do a bit of retail therapy, because my goodness, I own a lot of Warhammer to help with my mental health, then why don't you buy some cards from coolstuffinc.com, link in the description below, code Kenobi at checkout, 5% off your order, but buy some older cards. Buy yourself a copy of Fraying Line. And that's what I'm going to end the video on, is Fraying Line. Here's an example of a card that isn't strictly worse than something else, but it's hardly played because it's considered inefficient. In each upkeep, you can pay 2 mana to put a rope counter on one of your creatures and have them grab onto the line. And if a player chooses to not pay in their upkeep, the line snaps, and everyone without a rope counter is exiled. This is a political wrath that causes conversations, discussion, alliances. People frantically clamber to try and get one more turn rotation to put another counter on the commander. It is a wonderful card to see in action because it gives everyone at the table some agency to impact the game even without casting spells, because conversations and politics erupt from it. I'm going to do a whole video on the idea that cards that create choices for not only you but your opponents are a fantastic game-changing element of Magic the Gathering. But Fraying Line isn't pushing the power envelope. Hell, the card is like 2 or 3 years old now. It's from Battle of Baldur's Gate, which is to some people like me, feels like a new card. But what I'm saying is there's so many interesting and unique and weird Magic cards out there that see absolutely zero play, even though we have a social format where winning doesn't actually matter. So if anything, that's the format where you can fuck about with Fraying Line and other stupid cards, as opposed to chasing that $40, $50 mythic from the latest set as your new include for your commander. The social format shouldn't have people clamoring for the perfect deck list. Something I really dislike in the commander content space is people taking entire deck lists from each other. I had someone who'd proxied the entire of my Abthor Adrian deck to play against me at FNM recently. That was cool. That was humbling, and I loved that. But what I'm saying is, like, my deck build that I recently done on the channel, back when Ixalan landed, I did O'Hare Axenhill. I did like, here's a load of cards that are good in it. You fill out the rest. You have some experimentation and play with the stuff that you have in your collection, because that's way better than us all playing the same fucking list. I don't hate EDH Rec. I love EDH Rec as a resource. I think it could be very good for inspiration. But I think taking an entire list from there is not the best place to be in the social experimentation format. Take inspiration and discuss general wisdom, absolutely. But take some time to dig through your folders and boxes and find inspiration in the classic way. Play with some cards that you haven't played with for a few years. And if they're suboptimal, who cares? Aim for the things that will create moments and tell stories and make the game funny, because Commander doesn't matter and winning is not important. Aim for the better, funnier, and more memorable gameplay experiences like playing Fraying Line. Available now at coolstuffinc.com. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. I hope you found that at least slightly thought-provoking or giving you some food for thought. Let me know if you agree in the comment section below. Let me know if there's some fundamental problems that you come across with this stuff. Do you really think you have to play the latest stuff to keep up? I don't, but then again, I'm just really fucking good at the game. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out Patreon down below. For £2 a month, you can help support the channel and get involved with the Discord server. Ta-ta for now.